Hello, I'm Doug Muzzio. This is City Talk. 2.9 million New Yorkers were born in another country, or nearly 40% of all New Yorkers. 2/3 of New Yorkers are either immigrants or the sons and daughters of immigrants. These are both historic highs, both in the terms of the number of immigrants and its proportion of the population. New York is, as it always has been, the world's second home. To talk with us about immigrant New Yorkers, their trials, their triumphs, their needs, and New York City's response to their needs is Guillermo Linares, Commissioner of the New York City Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. Commissioner Linares made history when in 1991 he became the first Dominican elected to public office in the United States. He was reelected twice more to the City Council and has served on a number of national commissions related to immigration and Hispanic issues. He has served as commissioner since August of 2004. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Doug.
My pleasure. Commissioner, you were an immigrant. Describe for us your experience as an immigrant, as a Dominican immigrant, and how this experience shapes you in your job.
Well, having been born and raised in a farm and being the oldest of 9 children, coming here to New York City in the mid-60s, I arrived January 20th, 1966, precisely.
Right in the middle of all of that was happening then.
To the Bronx, East Tremont section of the Bronx, not ever having lived in a large city, and landing in the city of New York. This was quite dramatic for me. And not knowing a word of English.
You didn't have, okay.
My parents arrived 3 years before and lived in the Lower East Side, undocumented, working factories, got their green card, petitioned us, and I landed here. When I got here, I already had a job in a bodega waiting for me.
How old were you?
I was 15.
Okay.
I was 15, and that began for me. I mean, I always worked hard and went to school back in the farm in the north coast of the Dominican Republic. But when I landed here, it continued. It was work and go to school, but also assume a lot of responsibilities in the family, being the oldest and having to care for the smaller ones. And for me, was working in that bodega, earning $15 a week. I gave 13 to my parents, kept 2, until I got held up one evening and almost lost I had 2 rings on my forehead of the double sawed-off shotgun was put on my head.
This is not a pleasant experience.
Not a pleasant experience. Went on to work in a supermarket while I was in high school, and then paid my way through college driving a taxi at night. 3 years livery, we used to call them gypsies, and 2 years of yellow. And graduated from City College to be a teacher in Washington Heights.
New York City Public School teacher.
Yes. Yes, and
that's where I started too.
That really, I was active as a student, and that helped me put in context my perspective, my outlook as an immigrant, as a New Yorker, as a Dominican, but also as a new naturalized citizen. While I was in college, I became naturalized. And put in perspective for me what I needed to do when I landed in Washington Heights with 5th graders in front of me, in the same way I arrived 10 years before. And the parents immediately came to me, can you teach us English? We want to take the GED. Can you help us? We need immigration help. Can you find ways of helping us? And that began a process of activism in Washington Heights that eventually led to where I'm at today.
Okay, let's take some of those steps along the way. You were elected in 1991, as I mentioned earlier, as the first Dominican elected official in the United States to the city council from Washington Heights. What made you run? What said this is an avenue that I have to take?
It was never in my. I never conceived that I would become the first elected in the United States. It didn't. I knew of my commitment to help immigrant families arriving to Northern Manhattan, Washington Heights, and in line with my work as an educator and as an activist in the neighborhood. And after being involved organizing parents in Washington Heights, immigrant parents, when the district was exploding with newly arrived kids, needed to expand bilingual education programs, became the most overcrowded district in the city of New York in the 80s. Busing was the solution that the system had. Mm-hmm. Parents didn't want to send their children all over the city, sure, and they wanted schools built. I became elected to the school board in '83, and in '85, the parents that were organized, newly arrived parents, some undocumented, some legal, and so forth, but concerned about their kids' education, we began to organize parents in the different schools mm-hmm. in Washington Heights. Mm-hmm. And in '85, in anticipation of the school board election in '86, we managed to register just in one district in Northern Manhattan, 10,000 parents. Half of the parents registered in the city of New York were registered in 3 months by parents in Washington Heights. And I don't need to explain to you how concerned local elected officials became with that, and others that this was spread all over the place. The Board of Election didn't know what to do with 1,000 registered parents that all of a sudden landed for them to register, to file them. And out of that, I believe, came a movement of the parents that got involved for the first time in the election for mayor. Mm-hmm. Mayor Koch was going for another term, right, was concerned that it would be a big challenge and wanted to do something significant for Latinos. And one way of doing that was to commit to build schools in mm-hmm. Washington Heights. And we got a commitment from him. By the way, 10 schools were built, $300 million mm-hmm. were committed to Washington Heights for relief of overcrowding. And it's strictly connected to the fact that we had those parents steering and pushing forward for that. And eventually, that's how I got elected, because that movement right. Led to them my eventually running a few years later for city council.
And then getting reelected in '93 and '97, and then being term limited out.
Yes.
You're commissioner now. Tell me, how did the offer come from the administration for you to become the commissioner of the mayor's office of immigrant affairs, which, by the way, was seen by many as a sign of the administration's real commitment to servicing immigrants and providing them education? How did it come about? Who made the call? And was it easy to say yes?
After the city council and after term limits, I decided to go back to school and finish something that I started before the city council days, and that was to get my doctorate at Teachers College, Columbia University.
You're not the only Latino politician who's gone back to school and gotten a higher degree. It seems to be an effort. How close are you?
I'm
a professor, you remember.
Yes, I'm scheduled to defend in January.
You've got it done? The
yes.
dissertation's done?
Yes, I just need to defend it.
Congratulations, all right. You only have a defense?
Well, I just have my defense to do.
Congratulations.
And involved you know, in the basement of my home, trying to finish my schoolwork. The mayor reached out to me and asked me if I would consider joining his administration as his commissioner for immigrant affairs. I conveyed to him that I was quite busy trying to finish my schoolwork, and he says, well, I want you to think about it, and let's get together. Soon, the next time we got together, we shook hands, and the reason why I accepted his offer is because I believe deep down that what immigrants represent, and I am one of them, for the city of New York and for this great country of ours, offers perhaps the biggest promise that this country could hope for, and the state and the city in particular, especially New York City. And I know that I've learned that what makes that promise real for all of us, those who came before and those of us who are arriving now, is the drive that immigrants bring to aspire to improve themselves, to take advantage of what this city and this country offers. And that when you attempt to improve your conditions so that your children can have access to opportunity, education in particular, but opportunity to exercise democracy in its best form, opportunity that are hard to come where you're coming from, that as you try to improve your condition, others observe you trying to improve and extend their hands, not because they want something back, but because they want you to stand straight and be able to do the same, helping others. And I think that that spirit is what the Mayor Bloomberg understands needs to be one part of his legacy as a great mayor when he looks back. How much did he do to help the new waves of immigrants that are coming in, to help the city and to help themselves, to really reach the American dream? And I felt that he was inviting me to join him in something that we share in common, which is precisely letting immigrants know they're not alone. Being, in my case, an ambassador for the goodwill that I know exists in government. Whether you are in an agency like the Board of Education, or an agency like the police department that looks for public safety, or the health department, or the small business department, which deals with the small businesses network that we have. I want to be an ambassador. I want to help facilitate the goodwill that key agencies across the board provide services responding to all New Yorkers, but especially immigrant New Yorkers. But primarily what I really want to do proactively is to go to the leadership of those immigrant communities, regardless, and say, you have a role to play in what now is your new home in the neighborhood you live at. You need, we want you to, and I'm doing this on behalf of the mayor, we want you to share your ideas, your concerns, to be part of answering and challenging the problems that we face. So that we need to have that goodwill coming from the community and engage so that no one can say that they have no access to the services that we have available. And I want to help facilitate that on behalf of the mayor with all the leadership within city government, but also with the network of organizations that we have that advocate on behalf of immigrants, but the leadership of those immigrant communities as well.
Okay. The Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs became a charter-mandated position. What is its mission? What is its mandate? You just described what you are attempting to do, but what is the agency designed to do? What's its purpose?
The agency is created by charter mandate. The mayor upgraded into a commissionership, and part of his office with the position now of commissioner. The office is guided by the executive order that Mayor Bloomberg signed, Executive Order 41.
Talk about Executive Order 41.
Executive Order 41 is a clear mandate that comes from the mayor that speaks to all city employees that as they go about fulfilling their mission to serve New Yorkers, they are to also serve, not differently, all immigrant New Yorkers.
Irrespective of their status.
Of their status. And that is a very powerful message to send, because as long as you're here and you abide by our laws and you are a positive element within our city, you have access to all the services that all New Yorkers are entitled to. And my job is to proactively seek to that whatever services are available are there for immigrants, and that to inform them of that, to help facilitate that, but also to help facilitate the role that they need to play.
Okay, let's do, before we get off Executive Order 41, the Bloomberg administration has really strongly resisted attempts by the feds to involve law enforcement and hospitals in the identification of undocumented, illegal aliens, and the mayor has been very resistant to this. In fact, has foregone federal monies not to have city officials involved in identifying immigrants. It seems to me that the immigrant community has really appreciated this mayor's and the former mayor's involvement on behalf of immigrants, and it's a continuation of longstanding city policy.
I think that the mayor has been first in signing Executive Order 41, which is probably the strongest statement in any city in the country is probably made in terms of standing up for immigrants. In this case, it's a recognition of what immigrants represent for our city. And when there was the notion of request for services provided for by the federal level to obtain information from immigrants, the mayor stood firm against that, because what we are about is making sure that when you are in need of service, in this case health services, which are critical for us to be able to give immigrant families and their children access to those services. The last thing that you want is for New Yorkers, in this case immigrant New Yorkers, to fear that they should not approach an institution, a hospital in this case, because they may be in jeopardy themselves or their family. And so they will go into hiding, or they would not seek that. And I think that that would be detrimental to the city of New York, and the mayor understood that.
Right, and there seems to be a recognition of the importance of information to the immigrant communities and methods by which they can express their needs. For example, CUNY and the Daily News have run, as you know, a series of call-ins about Citizenship Now, and they got thousands and thousands of calls. There's a real hunger for information, and it's also centering on your agency as well. What specific activities is your agency involved in to inform and outreach to immigrants?
I'm familiar with the CUNY initiative with the Daily News, and in fact I attended a training on behalf of the mayor, and then I went during the week of calling and received some calls, by the way.
Oh, so you took calls. So we had the commissioner answering calls.
Absolutely. This is good. It's not surprising at all to me to see how much interest immigrant New Yorkers have in the process of becoming fully acclimated by becoming citizen of the United States and be fully participant on that. And I think it takes really efforts like the example that we had with CUNY and the Daily News, but also looking at the vast network of community-based organizations, faith-based institutions, and other type of networks that we have, especially within the immigrant communities, to come to bear and to be the conduit for information, for opportunities, and for access to services that we have available. We have a huge network of city agencies, and they all are in the business of informing immigrant New Yorkers. And we also have a huge network of ethnic media, newspapers, cable televisions, and part of the mission of my office is to use all of those networks in a proactive way to bring information and also to elicit the participation of the immigrants.
And one of the things that I know that you've been concerned with and have been working on is 311 as a tool for immigrants. Talk to us about that.
I am, I'm very excited about the potential that 311 has. I think it's a wonderful tool that the mayor has established. Having been in government, in the city council before, and having not having it back then, I can fully appreciate how important and critical this tool is. And now that I use it through my office, as all agencies do through the mayor, is a tremendous tool that we need to make immigrants aware that it has, when you call, 171 languages.
So you can call up and you will be spoken to or through somebody who speaks your own language.
If you speak one of 171 languages that we have in the city of New York, and you don't know one word in English, and you call first, and the answer will be in English initially. The system is set up that way. But if you're patient a little bit in expressing yourself in that language, the system will identify someone that will understand and answer you in that language.
Wow.
To be able to capture the need that you're calling about and then channeling it to the appropriate agency.
Is this fully operational now, or are we talking about
now.
It is now.
It is now.
How can it be made better? How can it be made more effective in enabling immigrants to communicate?
Part of my strategy with other agencies, but especially Do It, which operates this. But this is
Department of Information Technology.
And Technology.
Okay.
Part of our effort is really not just to use the entire network we have within different city agencies, but also to tap on the network that I mentioned before within different communities, community-based organization, and so forth, but also the media, to be able to bring this information. The other thing is, people need to know that when they call 311, they're calling Commissioner Linares.
Okay.
They're calling someone who is ready on behalf of the mayor to answer whatever needs that they have. And we are there to serve them. And I think immigrant New Yorkers, regardless of their status, need to understand that they should not fear whatsoever calling 311, because what they're calling is for help.
Okay. Moving to another issue, Flight 587 Memorial in the Rockaways. You've been very instrumental in the negotiations around this memorial. What's the status of it?
Well, this is a tragedy that happened only 2 months after 9/11. So it was like a double hit for for our city and in particular for the Dominican community.
Right.
And I was in the city council exiting at the time. And now in this new role, the mayor asked me to work through this process, and I have been doing that with a community assistant unit, and Deputy Mayor Patty Harris has been involved as well. And I have been working directly with the families themselves. We just went through the 3rd anniversary. And the idea of having a permanent memorial is something that the families wanted very much all along. And to have a memorial as near as possible to where the crash took place in Bell Harbor was also their sentiment. And we've reached the point where now the mayor announced that we will have a memorial. We are now in the beginning stages of establishing a process that will now give us eventually a memorial at Beach 116th, which is after consulting families, was a place of consensus, both checking with families and also checking with the community as well. So we are proceeding now, establishing a committee that will bring family members, and it will bring the appropriate representatives and leaders to be part of this process.
Okay, we've got 30 seconds to go. 2 questions, quick answers. 1, do you miss it? Meaning, do you miss elected political life? Do you have the itch? Will we ever see you run for office again?
Probably so, down the road. I mean, I never conceived that I would be doing what I'm doing now, but I'm enjoying it tremendously, and much more than I could have even imagined. And I am, in my role now, I'm serving all New Yorkers, and especially immigrant New Yorkers under the leadership of the mayor. And I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying this tremendously because it's a much bigger responsibility than I ever had. But, I'm still young, relatively young.
Right. And you've been described in the close as even-tempered, focused, and well-versed as commissioner. Congratulations. I haven't seen you since your appointment, and we will have you back. We need to talk more about this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.